This is the Sharing Without Shame podcast, where we go beyond addiction to uncover the deeper roots of trauma and shame. Hurt people hurt people. They hide behind masks. And here, we're done hiding. We're sharing our stories without shame.
Hello and welcome to the Sharing Without Shame podcast. I'm your host, Donna Marston, author, coach, and a mom who's walked through the hard road of loving someone in active addiction. I created this space to help you feel seen, supported, and empowered as you navigate your own healing journey. I'm passionate about guiding parents and family members on how to break free from codependency, stop unhealthy helping, and start reclaiming their lives without guilt or shame. That's exactly why I created the Compassionate Support Access Program, a safe, structured way for you to get the tools, guidance, and community you need to navigate your loved one's active addiction. And if you're just getting started, go to the show notes and grab my 5 boundaries and breakthroughs so that you can start your journey. Today, I would like to welcome Ashley Jo Jansen. She's an author, speaker, mom, podcaster, griever, and wife with grit, humor, and unflinching honesty. She writes about love, loss, and the grace that carries us through the unthinkable. Her memoir shares the heartbreak of losing her son, the unraveling of her marriage, and the sacred, steady work of piecing life back together. Her story is for anyone who has ever stood in the dark and wondered if light would return, and it will, and she's proof. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you, Donna.
You're very welcome, and I'm excited too. So, first question I always ask is, what would you like to share without shame?
That's a big one. So, what I would like to share today without shame is that I am an individual who is living in recovery. I am 5 years sober, but I
Congratulations.
have a very unique perspective because I have lived through both sides of addiction. I
Mm-hmm.
have been the individual struggling with substance use disorder myself most recently. But a decade before my own struggles, I walked side by side with my husband as he went through his own battle with alcoholism and opioid addiction. And so that just gives me a very, very unique and different perspective
Sure.
on what addiction looks like.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a lot.
It is a lot, right?
Yeah. It's like, okay, so where do we start? Let's talk about that. I mean, it all started with your husband. Is this your a current husband or an ex-husband?
No. So, yes, it is my ex-husband. And back in 2006, it was actually right before we got married that I found out he was using prescription opioids. He had gone to the dentist and got a cavity filled and started abusing the Vicodin that was being prescribed to him. And so, like,
Mm.
just a couple days before we got married, I had a brand new baby. We didn't do things in the right order. I find out that he's buying pills from a woman that we work with. And so I am just like devastated, right? Here I'm supposed to
Sure.
get married to this man. I'm devastated. And I remember sitting in my rocking chair and like actually like rocking back and forth and crying and nursing my baby and just saying like I don't know if I can marry you. Like you're not who I thought you were. This is all really really scary. But I'm from a very Christian community where like in my mind the way that you fixed a wrong was to do the next right thing. And so I'm like, okay, it's okay. God's got this. We're going to get married. We get married. And within the first year of our marriage, he becomes completely addicted to methadone, oxycodone, Percocet, any opioid that was out there that he could get his hands on.
Sure. Yeah.
He started taking those. And it was just devastating. I was only 21 years old, so I'm a baby, taking care of a baby and kind of watching what felt like my whole life fall apart in front of my
Sure.
eyes.
Sure. And
And
being a new mom and going through, I don't know if you had any postpartum, but all of that stuff and then all that into the mix, that there's a mess.
It is. It absolutely is. And like, thank goodness I have my family to support me through that. And so I knew nothing about addiction at this point, Donna. I mean, like, I had heard the word alcoholic growing up, but I thought that meant like you just can't drink too much, right? Like, that's what I think alcoholic means. And all of a sudden, I'm married to someone who's struggling with substance abuse and substance use disorder. And like, I get a front row seat that I never wanted to a
Uh,
disease that I never wanted to understand. And thank
right.
goodness I had the support of my family and my parents, and my dad and I were able to get my husband into a rehab program. And so when he went through treatment, I was 3 months pregnant with my second baby. So, like, now I've got a 9 month old and a baby on the way. I had two really close together. I have a newly sober husband. Honestly, when he was in treatment, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, how am I going to navigate through two babies and a newly sober husband? And we worked through it. We went through family counseling. He got sober. He came home. I had the baby 5 months later. So he's 5 months sober. I now have two kids under two. They were 17 months apart to the day. And then so, talk about stress, right? Like, just
Sure.
a tremendous amount of stress. And then on my son's 5 month birthday, he was diagnosed with a terminal disease called spinal muscular atrophy. And so then my husband is 10 months sober. I have two kids under two, one who's been given a terminal prognosis. And I
Mm,
am just sitting here going, how do I do all of this? How do I hold it all together? And the
wow.
truth was I couldn't hold it together, right? That's the lie we believe in our heads, is that we
Sure.
have control over what happens here. And then fast forward 5 months later, so now my son is 10 months old. My husband is 15 months sober. I'm only 23 by this time, and my son passes away.
Oh,
And so here we are navigating this road to recovery that my husband is on, and we lose our child. And that's just a devastating time for anyone to go through.
we
But
want
I
all
was,
that.
yeah, but I was so focused at this time, Donna, on like, making sure everybody else was okay. I was so worried about Ryan and Ryan's sobriety, and like, is he getting to the meetings and is he doing all the things to stay sober, and is Adela okay? Because what as long as they're okay, I'm fine, right? But what I'm doing in that point is neglecting everything that has to do with who I am as a human being and what
Sure.
I need as a human being and how
Mm-hmm.
I need to care for myself. And so fast forward, and I'll go through this. You can come back and we can dig into any of this that you want. I'm an open book. But fast forward a few more years, Ryan and I adopt a baby. He's still sober. Like, he's still sober. He's still working a program. But eventually we go on what I call this series of unfortunate moves. And we get away from his program of recovery, away from our church community. He stops working the program that had been helping him stay sober. And he becomes what I would refer to as a dry drunk, right? Like, he's not
Mm-hmm.
using, but he's also not being the best version of himself. And through that, our marriage falls apart. I have an affair. We end up getting a divorce. And then my downward spiral of my own depression, my own anxiety. Now here I am. I'm a mom who's lost a baby, who's adopted a baby, who has a daughter, who has lost a husband because I ruined that, right? And my shame spiral just is out of control. And that's when I start self-medicating, and I
Mm-hmm.
start picking up a drink to mask my depression, mask my anxiety, mask my shame, right? We're talking about sharing without shame,
Yep.
mask the shame that I carry from all of these life decisions. And that spirals until eventually I have no choice but to say I'm a full blown alcoholic, right? And I struggled for a couple of years, but I was really, really good at hiding it, as
Oh.
we so often are. I was so good at hiding it. And until I couldn't anymore. And that's kind of the story of addiction. Eventually it spirals so much you can't hide it anymore. And it is only by God's grace that I was able to find recovery on August 14th of 2020 in the middle of COVID. I somehow found recovery. And so that's the big timeline crunched into a really short highlight or low light reel for you, and we can dig into whatever you want.
Wow. I mean, there's just so much, because like, here your husband comes home from treatment and typically, you knew him using, sounds like you didn't know
Yes.
him as sober Ryan until
No.
he got sober. So now you're meeting this new person and it brings a
Yep.
whole new dynamic into the marriage. You have babies, a terminally ill baby. And I mean, like that's a lot. So what would there had to be, some really dark moments, as good as you were.
Hmm.
It had to have some dark moments, I would think. What would you tell somebody that's going through something like that? Or
Yeah. Oh
something that
my
you wish you
goodness.
had known, maybe.
Yeah, I wish I had known I'm stronger than I think I am. I wish I had
Mm.
known you can make it through the fire. I wish I had known grief doesn't ever end, but it certainly changes over time. I wish I had known some of those things because eventually, Donna, and you can probably even feel it, like as I share pieces of that story, it kind of just felt like it was never going to end. Like the grief and the hurt and the pain, it was never gonna end.
And there's two different griefs, right? There's grief for losing your child, and there's grief when our loved ones are in active addiction. There's a grief that we carry, right?
I
And
mean,
then
I
and
think
then the
that
marriage.
grief, yeah, that grief started when I was in the rocking chair nursing my baby, saying, I don't think I can marry you. I don't think I can marry you. Right then and there, I'm grieving a future I thought I would have. I'm grieving the marriage I thought I would have. I'm grieving the life I thought I would have. And let's be honest, Donna, no one signs up to live a life with someone who's in active addiction. There is nothing harder. I mean, I've lost a son, and there's nothing harder than living with a human being who is
Mhm.
in active addiction, in my experience. There's just not.
And especially if you don't understand it. I grew up like you. I didn't was very unaware of, even though I grew up in the 60s and 70s, I was very unaware of somebody who had alcoholism. I remember probably in my late teens being at my grandmother's and an uncle got out of a taxi. And the next thing I know, my father and another uncle had him under the arms and brought him back to the taxi and put him in and he left. And I said, "What's going on?" They said, "Oh, don't worry, he's sick." Well, he suffered from alcoholism, but
Yeah.
you didn't talk about it. It was just make him
Mhm.
go away. And that's how addiction impacted in the family is make them go away or make it go away because no one wants to deal with it because we don't, truth be told, we don't know how to deal with
We
it. There's no rules and regulations. We have to figure it out because what's worked for me may not work for you.
absolutely. And I think there's also this space, and I think this is the beautiful part of my journey is like pre my own struggle with alcoholism. I even as much as I worked to understand it and I read the all the books and did all the things when my husband was going through it, I wanted to be the most supportive wife that I could be, right? So I learned, but there is a difference between having the knowledge and having the experience. And so a decade later, when I'm on the other side and I'm the one who's struggling, what that all of a sudden gave me is like oh crap. This is maybe what he was struggling with at that moment in time that I didn't have a lot of grace for. Now I
Mhm.
have a whole different lens of grace through
Mm.
which I work and look at life because whether I wanted to or not, Donna, it's like my brain wasn't capable of understanding it. I thought no matter what, it was just a decision-making problem. Like he's just really bad at making decisions. He just
Yeah.
can't make the decision to put it down.
Yeah.
He just can't make the decision to not take the pill. Like it seems really simple. There's just something wrong with how Ryan makes decisions,
Yeah.
right? And you're nodding because you get
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, even though I had learned and I knew that that was not the real issue, all of a sudden here I am a decade later and I just can't not have a drink before bed. And then I
Mm.
just can't not have a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth drink before I go to bed. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, oh crap, that's me. That's what I've now become. And now I can't stop either. So now do I have a decision-making problem? Am I broken? Do I have the inability to make a good decision? Am I not a good moral human being? And there's a whole lot of grief associated with that too.
Mm. Sure. Well, yeah, because my thought is here you are going through it. And I don't know if you did this, but I know I did this. I would blame and shame my son because I didn't know better.
Yes, you
If
can't
you
help
did
it.
that, then how did that feel when you were in it? Like, does that kind of come and you want to, it makes you sick
Oh,
of the old
absolutely.
behaviors?
Absolutely. It's the number one reason why it took so long for me to be willing to enter a room and say, "Hi, I'm Ashley and I'm an alcoholic." The reason it took so long for me to do that, even though I knew in between these 2 years, I knew I was an alcoholic. I thought that by stepping into a room and saying those words, I was admitting that I was the exact same as him. But
Yeah.
here's the other truth. Addiction doesn't look the same for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just like recovery doesn't look the same for everyone,
Right.
addiction doesn't look the same for everyone. But that shame that you're talking about, of like that judgment I had towards Ryan and his broken decision making, all of a sudden I'm like, here I am, and this is me. And that was where the shame spiral just like got worse and
I
worse.
bet.
I went through moments of like severe suicidal ideation because again, we've been talking about grief. I didn't see a way through. It's like I was in quicksand and I'm trying to crawl my way through quicksand and I'm like getting stuck everywhere I go. And no matter what I do, I'm just sinking deeper and deeper and deeper down. And every crawl I take forward, I'm just sinking more and more. And it got to a weird place of feeling like the best end would be for it to just be over. Like everybody else's life would be better and easier if it was just, if my life was just done.
Yeah. And who held you accountable when you were going through your
Yeah, that's so,
journey?
it was so hard because I was a single mom. And I think that's what partially allowed my addiction to thrive and grow the way that it
Mm-hmm.
did is I didn't
Sure.
have a lot of people to be held accountable to, but I did have my sister who lived just blocks from me, and I did have my best friend. And they knew that I was struggling, but they didn't really know how to help or what to do, right? And so every once in a while my sister would take my kids for me when I was having a binge and or my best friend would. And then it's that fine line of like, are they enabling me or are they protecting the kid? Or like, where's this line between enabling and between helping and between codependency and just being a normal human being? And they wanted me to get help often, and I wasn't there. I wasn't ready. I am such a bold, determined, strong-willed woman that I was like, I can do this. I can beat this disease. I can be the exception to the rule, and I know I can quit by myself with no help. And the truth is that's kind of the disease, right?
I was gonna
It
say, how'd that
can.
work out for you?
Yeah. It didn't. It didn't. But another beautiful piece of my story is that because I had been introduced to what addiction looked like by being married to Ryan, I had tools in my toolbox that some people might not have. I
Right.
knew about recovery programs. And so when I finally got to a point where I was like, maybe I can't do this on my own, I knew there are meetings that I can step into. And there are people who have walked this road before me. I'm not the only person. And so that was how my recovery started, was just by like showing up at an online meeting myself and just checking it out. And that was
Yeah.
like me stepping into a room for the first time for myself. Had I not had that connection to Ryan, I would have not known what
Mm.
tools to use. And because addiction and substance use disorder are rarely spoken about, I think there are a lot of people who don't know the tools. My sister didn't have any idea of the tools, and she's in healthcare. My best friend, same thing, also in healthcare. What do we do with Ashley? She's a mess. How do we help her? Do we bring her to the mental health hospital? Do we take her
Mm.
kids from her?
Yeah, because and I mean, in your case, it's not just alcoholism. You're a single mom, you're grieving the loss of a marriage, you're grieving the loss of a child, grieving the loss of yourself. I mean, wow.
And I think the other like beautiful piece here, which I know it's probably weird to hear me say beautiful, but is that I got sober when I did, Donna. And here's why. I got sober in 2020, and I was dating my now husband then. And he
Mhm.
and I ended up getting married in 2023 in April. And there was a moment right before we got married where I remember like kneeling down next to the chair that he was sitting in, and I grabbed his hands. His name is Josh. And I said, Josh, are you sure you're ready for this? You know, that it wasn't me getting cold feet. It was like, my life is crazy. Are you
Yeah,
sure you're
bringing a
ready for
lot.
this?
Yeah.
Yeah, are you ready? And I remember clear as day, he looked at me and he's like, of course I'm ready for this. Let's do this. And we hugged and we kissed each other and we moved on with our day. And then we got married, a few weeks later. And on June 5 of 2023, so just short of 2 months after we get married, I get a call from my son, my adopted son, who was living with his father in Puerto Rico. And I didn't answer because I was working, and he was 12 at the time. I'm like, he only wants something. He never calls me to talk. He only calls me when he needs something, right? So I declined the call, declined the call, declined the call. And then a text comes through that says, Mom, please answer. It's not about technology. Dad just died.
Ugh.
And so I say that's a beautiful part of my story, that I got sober in 2020, because if I hadn't been sober in 2023 for my kids, they would have had to walk through losing their dad with a mom who wasn't able to be there for them and to support them and to walk through the grief of what losing a dad looks like. And Donna, his life ended due to a fentanyl overdose. And so this addiction road that we walked, I truly feel like I understand both sides to the extreme. I understand when you can't win that battle, that it sometimes ends in death being rock bottom. And I also understand the beautiful life that you can have when you are able to find recovery and work a program and have a good support system. And more than anything else, I am just so grateful that something happened inside of me in 2020 to prepare me and to get me sober and get me healthy and get me well, so that when my kids went through their darkest moment, I could be there for them.
Hmm. Hmm. Mm. Isn't it amazing how the journey like ebbs and flows and there's ups and downs, and all of a sudden there's a gift, and your sobriety was a gift
Mhm.
to them so that you could be present and, be the mom that they deserved and needed in that, you know, in those tough moments.
Yeah, and I mean it I don't think anything eases death, the pain of death and grief that comes with that. But I know that I wouldn't have handled it the way I did if I hadn't been sober. Because
Mm.
my addiction was using alcohol to cope with not being able to handle the pain of life. And when your kids lose their dad, there's a lot of pain associated with life, right? And death.
Sure, sure. Yeah.
And I'm so grateful because I just don't know how I would have navigated through that situation. And I'm so glad I don't know because I don't know because I made the choice and I got the help and I got
Hmm.
sober.
Hmm. Yeah. And do you work a program today? Do you continue to?
So my program looks different, right? I know
Yep.
some people step into a program and they keep working it for the rest of their life.
Yep.
I have transitioned from working a program and going to meetings, 12-step meetings on a regular basis to therapy. So I do cognitive behavioral therapy, I do marriage counseling with my husband, and I have a very, very strict exercise routine because for me, exercise and moving my body helps keep the depression and the anxiety at bay so that I
Hmm.
don't feel that need to self-medicate. I don't go to meetings on a regular basis anymore. That's just my journey of recovery. Some people
Yeah.
need to go for the rest of their life. If I'm having a bad day, I'll step into a meeting and I'll go to a meeting. If
Yep.
I have an urge, which I rarely have, so again, I'm so, 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 so blessed. I've only had two in my 5 years of sobriety where I even had a thought, I could just drink that if I wanted to. And then I was like, oh, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, right? So I work a program, but it looks a lot different than it did
Yeah.
on day one.
I think that can be important for some people because I think to have to the rest of your life say I'm a sick person. And I find more and more people are they work the program and maybe it's outgrowing it and moving into a different way, like you're into therapy and doing different things. I know my son, found a spiritual connection. He has a group of guys that they keep each other accountable.
Yep.
Because I mean, life's busy when you have children and you're working, and it's tough to get to the meetings. And so, I think it's really important for people to understand there's so many different pathways to recovery.
For sure.
There's not just one, but everybody's journey is different, and it doesn't make anybody's way any less important.
Oh, I see people on social media like bickering about this, right? Like
Oh,
someone will be like, I stepped out of the program because of XYZ. And then immediately there's like 10 trolls like, how dare you? The program saves lives. And it's like, listen, if someone finds something that works for them, my favorite line in the program is take what you need and leave the rest. And for
yeah,
me, what I needed was I needed the program to be a very huge part of my life for 1 year.
yeah.
And by the end of that 1 year, I had built that accountability system you're talking about that your son has,
Excuse me.
where my husband was holding me accountable, my sister was holding me accountable, my children were holding me accountable because I had gotten them involved in my healing journey.
But most importantly, you were holding yourself accountable.
Absolutely. And I was so committed. I mean, I went to two meetings a day for the first 90 days and a meeting a day for the first 365. And then what I found was there was this shift inside of me where it felt like an alcoholic was becoming my identity. And I
Mm,
just made a decision that like I get to choose who I want to be in life, and I didn't want a negative label that the world sometimes puts on people to define who I am for
yeah.
the rest of my life. And so if I need to sit in front of someone and they are struggling, I will say, "Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm an alcoholic and I have been in recovery for 5 years. Here's my story." But I don't wake up every day, look in the mirror and say, hi, I'm Ashley and I'm an alcoholic. Because for me, that shame spiral was so dangerous. It's what led to my addiction in the first place.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, oh, I get that. And I think that's really an important thing for people to know. That's okay. And you don't have to label yourself. Drives me crazy, the words, the names. because that's not who you are ever, ever. That, it might have been a symptom of the
Yes.
disease, but it's not who Ashley is. It was a
Yeah.
behavior when you were sick and suffering.
And I think what I learned too through this whole process is that same what you just said that applies to me, that applied to Ryan too, right? And
Mhm.
so even though so many people, myself included, sometimes just looked at Ryan as like, oh, he's just the crazy salesperson, alcoholic, and he can't get his crap together, right? But it's
Yeah.
like, no, 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 that doesn't define who he
Mm-mm.
is
Mm-mm.
as a
Yeah.
human being. And that's the other piece I would want your audience to hear is like, your struggle does not define you. Your worst day in life, if all of us were defined by our worst moments in life, none of us would wear good labels. None of us.
Right.
So why would we choose to label other people that way, right?
Yeah. And as a parent and family members, we get labeled, you're codependent, you're enabling, you're this and you're that. And all in the name of love, we get shamed and blamed because we have a loved one in active addiction. It's interesting because the behaviors, no matter what side you're on,
Are the same.
are the same. We mimic each other's behaviors. Just, I don't have a substance use disorder, but doesn't mean I didn't have bad behavior when my son was sick and suffering. Absolutely, I did. So, Ashley, let's talk about your book,
Oh, yes.
Tides of Grief, Waves of Grace. How did that come about?
Yes. So this book right here is born from my program of recovery. And the reason I say that is because one of the very first things I had to do when I chose to get sober, I went to an online intensive outpatient program. A lot of people don't even know those exist, but they
Oh,
do. And I did that because I was a single mom. And one of my barriers to getting help was I did not want to leave my kids, right?
sure. Yeah.
And one of the first things I did when I entered that program is they had me write my own eulogy as
Ooh,
though my life had ended
ooh,
from substance abuse.
yeah,
And that was a hard exercise to
I bet.
do. And as I was writing it and reading it to my therapist later, I just had this moment of like, I need to find a way to put purpose to my pain. There
Yeah.
has to be a reason behind all of this. And so later in the program, we wrote our eulogy again as though we had lived a long and prosperous life. And
Mm,
when I did that, it was like what we're talking about today. I saw the two paths that addiction can take. It can take the path of death, disease, and destruction, heartbreak, hurt, broken families, or it can take the path of healing, love, acceptance, kindness, recovery, legacy. And at that moment, I was like, there can be beauty in this story. And I knew in that moment, like someday I'm going to write this story and I'm going to share it with the world. And it's going to become this thing that like helps people. Right. And so I started writing it fairly early in my program. And I wrote chapter one and chapter two. And then I stopped. I stopped for 4.5 years.
oh, wow.
And after Ryan passed away, I picked up my writing again.
Mm,
And the part of the reason why this is so beautiful is it all comes full circle. When my son was sick, I had picked up journaling to process all of the emotions associated with his journey here on earth and then his journey to heaven. And so after Ryan passes away, I sit down, I start writing again. And I didn't have an outline, I didn't have a plan. I just started writing. Like whatever comes to me, I'm just going to write it. And the
yeah,
more I wrote, the more I was like, this is entertaining. It's uh healing for me and like for
sure.
someone else, I think it'd be
Yeah.
healing too. And so from that was birthed this beautiful piece of work, Tides of Grief, Waves of Grace, a memoir of scandal, sobriety, heartbreak, and healing that I am so proud of.
That's awesome. I love the name.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you
That
went
was
through a lot of
hard.
waves. You had to crash through a bunch of waves, right? It's
Well,
like
and I think I
surfing.
felt like I was drowning so much, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
a piece of the title of the book came from after Ryan passed. I took my kids to a family counseling session. I was like, I don't know how to navigate grief, really, because I've done it before and I sucked at it. So I don't know how to do this, but we're just all going to go to counseling together. Are you guys good with that?
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, let's go. So we all went to a family therapy session together. And as we were all talking about where we were with like Ryan's grief, we were all in a very different place. And she said, the
Mm.
thing I want you to remember is that grief is like riding a wave. And whatever you're feeling in the current moment, when that wave comes to shore, eventually it ends. And then you get on another wave and you ride that wave. And guess what? Sometimes, Ashley, you're going to be on a wave that's right here, but Azariah, you're going to be on a wave that's way back here. And Adela, you're going to be on a wave that's way up here. You're rarely going to be riding the same wave, but I just need you to know grief comes in waves, and those waves always eventually reach the shore. And
Yeah.
so hearing that comparison, I like felt seen and understood. And it's like, oh my goodness. And I looked at my life and I'm like, that's really what I've been experiencing. Sometimes my grief pulled me all the way out to shore and it's like I'm caught in a riptide and I don't know how to get back to shore.
Yeah.
But if you just start swimming parallel, eventually you find a wave that you can catch and you can ride it back to shore. And
Mhm.
so that's where the title came from.
Love it. Awesome. So, how do people get in touch with you if they want to get your book? And
Yes, you can find me on my website, thisisashleyjoe.com, or my Instagram at thisisashleyjoe, and Ashley is Ashley. Joe is J.
and you do speaking engagements as well?
Yes, I love sharing my story. I love to speak on blended families, addiction, chaos, turmoil, grief, anything and everything. As you can tell, I could talk all day long.
Well, you're great. You do a great job. Now, do you do any coaching or anything like that?
I do not. Nope. Just my
Do
book, and I just want to give back to people who feel like they are in the middle of their struggle.
Yeah, awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for your vulnerability, your honesty, and taking the time out of your busy day with 5 kids, is it total?
5 kids,
5 kids.
yes.
God bless you.
It's very busy. Every day is a challenge and a joy.
I bet. I know you have to look at the roses and the thorns, right?
That's true, true.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and good luck with your book. If there's anything that we can help you with, certainly reach out. It's been a
Thank you
pleasure
so
having
much.
you. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining Donna for today's conversation. Remember, trauma may wear many faces, but healing is about uncovering the truth beneath the pain and learning to live without shame. If today's episode resonated with you, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. It helps this message reach more hearts that need it. If you have a story of navigating trauma, shame, or addiction and how you found your freedom, Donna would love to hear from you. This podcast is built on real stories, and yours could inspire someone else's healing. Visit sharingwithoutshame.com to connect with Donna, apply to be a guest, or learn how to bring her books, coaching, and speaking engagements to your community or organization. Until next time, remember, healing begins the moment you choose to stop hiding and start sharing without shame.